Hi, and welcome back to another episode of Tuba People TV, where we talk about all things Arnold Jacobs all of the time. As you can see, Puddles isn't with me today. He's had a very busy day. This is our third interview today, so he has to take time off. He's resting, so I'm persevering through. I'm happy to be with Ross Beacraft. Wow, Ross, I just can't believe here you are sitting next to me.
It's been a long time, way too long.
Way too long. Ross is the Director of Admission here at DePaul University. We're on the campus at DePaul University School of Music. Ross is also the principal trumpeter of the Chicago Brass Quintet. And how many years have you been?
I think I joined the Brass Quintet in 1978.
Woo!
So a few years.
Few years. That's a lot of Ewalds and Boatses and Arnolds.
All
and
kinds of stuff all over the world. Yeah, it's been a great time. Yeah.
And principal trumpet of the Chicago Opera Theater and the Elgin Symphony.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got several full-time jobs.
Yeah, it's fun.
Very
it's a good life.
And in addition to his work, he also is a former student of Arnold Jacobs.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until recently.
Yeah, he made a big difference for me, really changed my life. I came up to study with Arnold after playing a year with the North Carolina Symphony right after school. That was my first job. And my roommate there was the principal oboist of the orchestra who had played in the Chicago Civic Orchestra. And he kept telling me all the time, you're really a solid player. He said, you need to go to Chicago and get that sound in yours, and you need to study with Arnold Jacobs. So I took him at his word, and when the orchestra was off, I decided to come up and spend that summer in Chicago studying with Arnold, and Jake just changed my life. I remember the first day, first lesson, he said, well, what are some of the issues that you're having? And I said, well, I've never been able to play that little lick from Also Sprack. I can play a lot of things, because I played for him. He said, well, let's think about that. And by the end of that 1 hour lesson, he had me doing it over and over and over, and I never missed it again.
Wow, that's great. That's really amazing. And we were talking off camera that you had happened upon the CSO, was it a Friday afternoon concert?
Yeah, when I got off the bus from North Carolina, I decided to walk down to the orchestra hall, because I'd been listening to the Chicago Symphony records forever, and just so happened they were playing Also Sprack that afternoon for the 1 o'clock Friday afternoon concerts. Mm-hmm. So I bought a ticket and went up and sat in the gallery, and they started to play, and I just cried. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe what was hitting my ears, that it could be so much better live than what I'd heard on the records. And the records, in my opinion, just dwarfed every other brass section in the world. Mm-hmm. I mean, they played as if they had one mind. There was an ensemble quality that just was amazing. And I was lucky enough to, after that summer with Jake, to come back and study with Bud Hurst and play in Civic and be here during what I think of as golden age of brass playing in Chicago. And then go from there to being a regular substitute and extra with them for, I think, more than 23 years. And so a lot of memories, a lot of recordings with them, trips, etc.
So what period of space of time was this when you
Well, the first time I ever played with them was when I was in Civic, and I think that would have been 1971. Okay. And I played Verdi Requiem with Giulini. Oh. And it was the time that his mother had just passed away. Oh. And it was like a requiem for us. And I want to tell you, there was every musician on that stage was giving everything they had. They were leaving everything on the field. There was nothing going home that night.
They loved Giulini.
And he loved them. And you could sense it. And it was really magical music making, just incredible.
Wow.
And then I played quite a bit, won the Louis Sutler thing for Civic, and so I played a lot with them. Vincent Chikowitz was having some trouble with some ulcer issues, so I got to play second several times, things of that nature. Then I went to Norway and played the principal trumpet in the Norwegian Opera and Ballet. I had a lovely time. Norwegian people treated me absolutely fantastically. Missed the States in Chicago, so I decided to come back and make a career as a freelancer here. So I got the job teaching here, which I did for 20 years before moving to this position, and then did a lot of extra with the symphony during that next 20 years or so. And it was a wonderful time.
What do you remember being on stage with Bud and with Jake, and I suppose with Dale as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, the whole brass section, the whole orchestra there was a sense of concentration like nothing else I'd ever felt. I mean, if you sat aside of Herseth, when he was playing, he was in a zone, and you sensed that you just went with it. I mean, it almost played the horn for you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, the pitch center was so strong, it's so easy to find. The sense of time was so good that it was very easy to play. Mm-hmm. And you just listened to what was going around you, and you went with that sort of wave, and it was delight. I mean, Jake on the bottom, what a great foundation to tune to. Mm-hmm. You know, just sitting there, and Bud on the top, I mean, shimmering and just singing over top of everybody, and then you just fit your part in where it was supposed to go. How could you miss?
No, pretty hard to. I think hard to miss on that.
Pretty nice. Yeah.
That's great. You know, when you were studying with Jake, was there a lot of people I know? He's known as that breathing guy, but you know, he was first and foremost about the music. And what was your experience with him?
My sense, what I think I hope that I understood about his teaching is that he taught the individual in front of him. That he didn't have a system. So many people, when I talk to them, even some people that have studied with him, I always felt got it wrong. That he wasn't about breathing. He was about music making, and breathing was one of the tools as a brass player that he used. So obviously, if you were really tight in the bundle, he needed to free that up, you know, in a way so that you could utilize your bow, if you will, you know, to create the proper vibration, get that flow going. But for me, what was even more important is he taught me how to think about music, and he got me away from thinking of myself. And so from to this day, when I pick up my horn to play, I try to forget totally about me and focus only on the music. And he also taught me that if the music isn't in your head, there's no way it can come out your horn. One of his favorite sayings is about the two instruments, the one in your head and the one in your hand. And this one is only a reflection of what's there. And it makes a huge difference. He also worked a great deal on solfege, which makes so much sense, because if you can hear the music in the head the moment you see it, your chances of having a great success with the instrument is so much better. Mm-hmm. So I think it was, to me, more about music and the thought process, and it may sound so corny, but maybe even your spiritual connection to the music itself, to go beyond yourself. And when you're sharing that way, it's so much easier to play.
That's great. Thanks. I'm wondering if you have any other memories about lessons with Jake. You mentioned the solfege and Zarathustra. Anything else?
Yeah, one of the great lessons I took from him was that I needed to think on a higher level, a higher plane, as an artist. And he would often say to me, okay, I want you to imagine you're sitting behind a screen, and Adolf Hirst is sitting inside of you, and you're going to play, and no one out there can tell the difference between the two of you. In fact, if they choose which one's Bud, it'll be you. And I thought, what a great concept. And the truth is, I've used that many, many, many times, and still do in my own practicing. Mm-hmm. And in my own teaching, I've tried to get people to understand that if you want to be a great artist, you have to think like a great artist. You must think like a Herseth. You must think like an Andre. And you can't set your levels too low. Mm-hmm. You have to think at that level. Mm-hmm. And at some point, you become a composite of everybody you've ever heard in both a positive and a negative way. But you have to establish your own voice. You must be you. You can't be another Herseth. There can only be one Herseth. There can only be one Andre. There can only be one Dizzy Gillespie. There can only be one Jacobs. So you need to be, one Mike Gross, one Ross Beacraft. That's You have to find your own voice. And I think Jacobs went a long way to showing me the path to finding that.
To me, it's when Jake got to the CSO in '44, he was, just miles, years, decades ahead of any of his colleagues, tuba-wise. In terms of his skills and his ability on the instrument. And then Bud got there in 47, 48, and I just can't imagine. Jake must have found his kindred spirit in Bud. because Bud was just so amazing in that way too, so different from any of his peers.
Yeah, well, I think they were kindred spirits. I think they loved each other very much. I mean, I know they were roommates on the road. They finally had to stop doing that because they go out and they gained too much weight every time they came back in. But there was great affection. I have no doubt. I mean, Jacobs is the one who arranged in many ways for me to study with Bud, the one who encouraged me to do that and set the path for me. Mm-hmm. And when Bud, whenever he talked about Jay, it was always with great affection in his voice, you know. So in the way they shared the music making duties, and if you talk to any of their colleagues there, they both held them in great reverence almost.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and in his teaching, he, as you mentioned, he was always holding up Bud as the model, and I think
absolutely
in his research, Jake's research in the early '50s, he included Bud in that. And I think that was probably part of the reason why he got interested in. That was one of the reasons that he kept going in his interest in his research in physiology to figure out, well, what makes Bud, you know, what makes him tick, what makes him be able to do, what makes any of us be able to do that.
Right.
And Bud was so great.
Well, yeah, I mean, he was totally dedicated to his art form. He kept life simple. He was a great humble person. He really reached out and helped everybody that he could. You know, given the opportunity, he only had so much time. Didn't take a lot of students, but those he did take, he gave everything he had. You know, so and I think those two were very much alike in that way, in the sense that you had here studying with those men were not, you know, like the gods coming down from Olympus and you were a peon. Mm-hmm. They treated you like an equal. They treated you like they were happy that you were there, and they were sharing something that was important with you. I mean, Herseth never took a penny from me the whole time I studied with him, and the only repayment he ever asked was that I pass it along.
That's a great mantra for any teacher, I think, any life saying for any teacher.
I learned as much about life from those two men as I did about music making.
In the CSO, were you able to go on any trips, tours, or
sure.
any big events?
I played. One of the most memorable ones was Carnegie Hall, doing Otello with Schulte, Luciano Pavarotti. Let's see, Kerry Takanawa. Pretty amazing. It's a great offstage trumpet part because you play part of it offstage and then you come on stage and play the other part, and you know, with the CSO and just roaring all the way. Mm-hmm. That was wonderful, great fun. I used to go up with him quite frequently to the trips to Milwaukee. I played a lot at Ravinia doing things like Bartok, Concerto for Orchestra, etc. Recorded the Wooden Prince with Boulez with them. Recorded. My first recording was I got a 11 o'clock call. Vince Chikowitz
PM or AM?
PM.
The night before.
Had an ulcer attack, and they needed somebody to come in and record with Barenboim, Bruckner 4 at 9 a.m. in the morning at Medina Temple.
Wow.
So I was living in an apartment. I got my rotary valve trumpet, which was Bud's. He was on loan to me. Went down, put a mute in the basement, because I lived in an apartment place in a little storage room, and practiced the part at about 2 a.m. in the morning until I had a cold. And then they went in and no rehearsal, bang. You know.
Wow, man.
So that was kind of fun.
They cover the whole symphony in that?
It was the last movement. They had already put down some of it,
Last movement.
And I had to play particular parts. So because in there I was basically, they moved everybody up, and I was kind of playing assistant, so they could different parts, you know, and worked out great, you know. But then I also got to do the Disney Fantasia 2 thing with them. Uh-huh. Yeah, we did that, and I played all the cornet parts on the choral, the big choral thing, the Verdi chorus thing. Mm-hmm. That was the principal cornet parts on that were really fun to play.
Wow.
And so I got to do a lot of nice stuff with them over the years. You know.
Wow, what great fun. Yeah. Wow. Well, Ross, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to give your impression and your memories of Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Herseth, and just music in general. It's been great. And Before Puddles began his nap, he reminded me that I should be a good host, and so he left with me a gift for you. Some of his very famous University of Oregon chocolate duck nuts.
Chocolate duck nuts.
So
good.
Puddles isn't here, but he would like you to have these.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Great to see you.
It's great to see you
Yeah.
again. True Chicagoan through and through, no matter where he is, Savannah or Oregon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now back to you.
Do you recommend the Blues Brothers?
Oh, you gotta see it.
Gotta see the Blues.
Why is it so good?
It's Chicago.
It's Chicago.
I mean, it's
is.
done by guys who cut their teeth in Second City here in Chicago.
Wow.
It's quintessential Chicago kind of scene. All the scenes were that, and for people that grew up here, I don't know whether it's going to be seen real dated to him, but for us, it's part of our youth in certain ways.
It is.
Yeah, so
That's
It's amazing.